Now, in a recent interview with Fight Hype, Angel Garcia has come out and said that Danny Garcia was feeling a little bit anxious for the Errol Spence fight, and that, he wasn't fully happy. And obviously, when you have a fighter who was feeling anxious and who was not, 100%, they're not really happy, it's going to affect their performance. Now, I always find this interesting when people give reasons to why they or their fighter lost, several months, even years after a fight, because I feel like there is an element of truth in what they're saying. Now, obviously, at the time, Danny Garcia and Angel Garcia were adamant that they were going to beat Spence and that, they could get one over Spence and that they shouldn't be the underdog and so on and so forth. But what do you expect them to say? Do you expect them to say, oh, well, I'm anxious? Well, if they came out and said that, people wouldn't even pay for the pay-per-view. They'd think to themselves, oh, Danny Garcia is just going to roll over for Spence. He's making excuses, and they'll call the fight fixed, which is what a lot of people like to say. They like to call virtually every fight fixed. So, I don't blame fighters for lying and saying, oh, well, I'm 100% and everything is perfect and there's no injuries and this is the best camp I've ever had, even though that's not true most of the time. So that's why I believe that there is some truth in what, Angel Garcia was saying. Anyways, Danny Garcia is set to make his debut at 154 pounds against Benavidez Jr., and he is looking to become three-weight world champion, I think it is, Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia has been in a lot of fights at the top level. He fought Thurman, he fought Porter, he fought Spence. He's fought, I think Amir Khan he also fought. So he's fought a lot of top guys. He is no pushover, and this is someone who's only lost to guys at the very elite level. Guys like Porter, guys like Spence, guys like Thurman. These are, maybe some people would argue B-level fighters, but I'd say they're A-level fighters. And it'll be interesting to see how, going up in weight affects him. Is he going up in weight because it's too hard to cut down to weight? Because, his body is bigger, more muscles are more dense, and, he's filling out his man frame? Or could he just not be bothered to make 147? He feels like, oh, it's a little hard. I'm going to just move up in weight and see what I can do at 154 pounds. Hopefully, he genuinely believes he can do something at this weight division, because I feel like a fight against Jermell Charlo would be interesting. There's other guys at 154 pounds, such as Tim Tszyu, maybe Brian Castano, who Charlo knocked out, or the really tall guy. What's his name again? Sebastian Vendora. That guy, he's like, what, 6'6", 6'5.5", really tall. So it'd be very interesting to see Danny Garcia, fight some of the guys at 154 pounds. I think he also called out Spence and said, he would like to fight Errol Spence at 154 pounds. I mean, I don't think I'd want to see the Spence fight in particular, because we've seen it already. I would prefer he fight other guys at 154 pounds, because I just feel like, the fight goes the same way. He really struggled to set traps in the Errol Spence fight. He really struggled to land consistently against Spence, and that's credit to Spence. Some people will be critical of Danny Garcia and say Errol Spence was nowhere near his best that night, and that is true. Errol Spence, who wasn't near his best, was able to beat Danny Garcia, but to be fair, Errol Spence, who's way off his best, is better than 95% of boxers. So you could look at it both ways. You could say Danny Garcia was underwhelming and he didn't do enough in the fight, or you could just say Errol Spence is really good. Maybe a little bit of both. Another thing I also found interesting that Angel Garcia said in this interview with Fight Hype was that he said to Errol Spence that if I was him, being Spence, I wouldn't take a 50-50 split with Terence Crawford, because Terence Crawford doesn't sell tickets. Now, for the longest, I feel like people have been using this against Terence Crawford. Not only, fighters and trainers been using against him, promoters and even fans, people online have been very critical of Terence Crawford, saying that, he doesn't bring in that much money, yet he's probably earning a lot more than most boxers. I mean, listen, I don't quite know their pay-per-view numbers, but I have seen this argument thrown around a fair few times. So, assuming it is true, I don't like to hear this from Angel Garcia, because Spence might think to himself, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Crawford doesn't sell as much as me. Yeah, I want 60-40. I want 70-30. It's only going to act as a barrier to making the Spence Crawford fight. We don't need to see everyone turn into promoters and say that, oh, Terence Crawford doesn't sell as much as Errol Spence, so Spence should be getting a better split. Just try make the fight happen. I mean, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. This is not anyone else's money. It's between Spence and Crawford. So I understand people trying to give advice and give their opinions and saying that Errol Spence has more financial mileage. But that's not Terence Crawford's fault, because Terence Crawford's performances have been very exciting. He knocks out guys. He knocked out Kell Brook, in a couple of rounds. He knocked out Sean Porter. The only person to ever knock out Sean Porter was Terence Crawford. So this is someone who is very exciting, and he's also extremely skilled and technical. He's not someone who relies on his punching power. This is someone who can knock guys out, and he can box guys' heads off. If it is anyone's fault, it's his former promoter and his promotional company, Bob Arum and Top Rank. In my opinion, they've been the one who've let Terence Crawford down. It was Bob Arum's job to promote Terence Crawford, and Terence Crawford was delivering in the ring. You can't argue and say that, oh, well, he wasn't performing well in the ring, because this guy was knocking out guys that nobody else has knocked out. He was producing very good performances inside the ring. So it's his job to produce good performances in the ring, and if his promoter can't take that and run away with that, well, you've got to look at Bob Arum and Top Rank. So I'm not one who is very critical of Terence Crawford in this situation of, his lack of financial mileage, as people like to obsess about. Rather, I am more critical of Bob Arum and Top Rank instead. Alright guys, just a short video today. Let me know what you guys in the comment section below think. Was Angel Garcia making excuses for Danny Garcia? Would you like to see Danny Garcia and Errol Spence have a rematch at 154 pounds? Who do you think is going to win the upcoming fight between Benavidez and Danny Garcia? And what do you think of this narrative about Crawford not being as financially mileaged or producing enough money and so on and so forth? I think it's nonsense. It might be true, but it's not his fault. I'm not saying that, it's not true, but I'm saying that it's not his fault, because he's been delivering quality performances in the ring. That is on Bob Arum and Top Rank. Alright guys, peace.